The mummy's curse that sank the Titanic. A curse fell on everyone who saw it. Everyone who touched her coffin died. Amn Ra, the cursed mummy. The story of the mummy of Amn Ra and its connection to the Titanic is considered one of the most exciting stories in the history of Egyptian antiquities. Amn Ra, who is believed to have been a priestess from Luxor, and this came after analyzing the inscriptions and symbols on the lid of the coffin. This lid, which is considered the last remaining archaeological evidence of the mummy. Some say that she was a princess of great importance, but there is no written or tangible evidence for this, and it remains an assumption put forward by one of the specialists in the Pharaonic civilization in the British Museum. According to available information, Amn Ra is considered a mysterious figure of unknown parentage. Researchers concluded that she lived in a period of time between 900 and 1500 BC, and she died and was buried in Luxor, and was discovered in 1890. It is believed that Amn Ra was a pharaonic princess of great importance based on the grandeur of her tomb, which was exclusive to kings at the time, and the engravings, colorful drawings, and high-quality wood that covered the coffin. However, there is no clear documentation of the discovery of the mummy of Amn Ra, nor is there any specific date for its discovery, as during the 19th century the trade in antiquities was not legally criminalized. Legend tells that Amn Ra was surrounded by a powerful curse that caused a series of tragic events for anyone who tried to possess her or get close to her. It was written on her coffin, "The jinx affects anyone who touches the coffin or approaches it." The mysterious beginning. The story begins when an unidentified British merchant bought the mummy's coffin from Luxor and transported it to England illegally. After a short time, a series of unfortunate events began to happen to him and to everyone around him. The merchant learned that there was something wrong and secret surrounding that mummy, which prompted him to sell the coffin for a very small sum. It is said that it is made up of only 4 zeros, which is a low price compared to historical antiques, and here we are talking about an antique mummy said to belong to an important princess. This was in 1910. The merchant then died in a traffic accident under mysterious circumstances. However, tragic accidents continued to haunt everyone who owned the coffin after him. The buyer was an English scientist named Douglas Murray. The mummy's curse befell him when he went on a hunting trip, and the gun exploded in his hand for no apparent reason. After suffering from pain for weeks in the hospital, his arm was amputated. The first thing he did after recovering was to connect things together, how the merchant sold him the mummy at a low price, and how everyone who carried the coffin to deliver it to Douglas's house died after that in mysterious circumstances, so he gave the coffin to his friend. Barely a week had passed in his girlfriend's life since she owned the coffin before her brother broke off his engagement and died, and she too followed him days later. After the death of his girlfriend, the coffin was once again owned by the scientist Douglas Murray, but he was far from keeping the coffin, so he decided to give it to the British Museum for free. And here a series of tragic events began. The curse has found new prey, from museum workers to photographers. Among the alleged events is the death of some workers who approached the coffin, even those who were responsible for cleaning it and removing dust from it. Then the incident of the photographer, in which some accounts say that while he was photographing the coffin, he died next to it, and other accounts say that he found in the pictures a person between life and death. Looking at him, even though the pictures were only of the coffin and its lid, and despite the photographer burning these pictures, the image of the mummy continued to haunt him. When his son died, he lived the next few days in fear and panic, until he ended his life with a bullet in his head. The journey to the Titanic. We now reach the tragic year that witnessed the death of hundreds of people on board the Titanic, which sank after colliding with an iceberg in 1912. Legend says that after officials at the British Museum noticed these tragic incidents, they hid them from publicity and decided to get rid of the mummy by sending it to a museum in New York. The ship Titanic was chosen to carry the coffin of the cursed mummy. According to legend, the mummy was the reason for the sinking of the Titanic, as the curse affected the captain of the ship, and this was evident in his strange and mysterious behavior while sailing, changing his course without justification, and his delay in calling for help until the last moments. The truth behind the myth. Despite the sensational stories, experts say there is no evidence that the mummy of Amn Ra aboard the Titanic. Scientific explanation of the curse. Scientists provide a scientific explanation for what is called the curse of the Pharaohs, pointing out that the presence of stones and metals inside ancient Egyptian tombs can interact and cause radiation and bacteria that may lead to health problems for people who deal with these effects without taking the necessary precautions. The chief archaeologist at the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, Magdi Shaker, explained that the ancient Egyptians had curse texts aimed at terrorizing tomb thieves, but nothing of what was written happened. The evidence for this is that most of the tombs of the pharaohs were discovered without any damage. He added that rumors about curses began to appear after the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, and that the press contributed to spreading these myths. As for the cover of the coffin of Amn Ra, the British Museum announced that the coffin cover is still in the museum to this day. There are rumors that the cover came from Luxor Governorate and was bought by a British man and transported to England, but there is no confirmed information about the location of its tomb or any other details about it. In the end, the story of the mummy of Amn Ra and the Titanic remains one of the mysteries that combine myth and history and continues to arouse the curiosity and imagination of many around the world. The truth about the mummy of Amn Ra is surrounded by many myths and stories, but scientific and archaeological evidence indicates that there is no conclusive evidence of the existence of a mummy with the aforementioned name. The stories circulating about the mummy of Amn Ra and the curses associated with it are part of the popular myths that have been circulated over the years. So, what do you think? Is the presence of the coffin lid in the British Museum evidence of the credibility of the experts? Or is it evidence that the legend actually happened and that the museum kept the lid before sending the coffin via the Titanic? Let us know what you think in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel to follow everything that is exciting and strange in ancient Egyptian civilization. Wait for the next episode of Wonders of the Land of Civilization.